Fitzroy is one of the oldest clubs in the VFL. In 1983, the Lions' centenary year, Fitzroy players broke VFL and club records as they celebrated 100 winters of maroon and blue football. 1983 was a season all Lion supporters would remember. From the start, the Lions' brilliant form warned the rest of the VFL that they faced tough opponents. Fitzroy's extraordinary 1981 Brownlow medalist Bernie Quinlan was switched from centre-half forward to full forward to help him recover from an ankle injury. The move paid off, and Quinlan, at the tender age of 32, became Fitzroy's dynamic spearhead. After a loss against Hawthorn in the opening round, Fitzroy won the next 7 games. The scalps included North Melbourne and Essendon by more than 40 points, and 1982 premiers Carlton by 10 goals. These victories ensured that Fitzroy became an early favourite for the premiership. No team could be confident of winning, while Fitzroy had players such as Bernie Quinlan, Gary Wilson, Gary Sidebottom, Michael Conlon, Laurie Serafini and Grant Laurie playing with brilliance and confidence. The Lions were playing their 100th season with a new sense of purpose, teamwork and resolve to win. It was a resolve which coach Robert Walls had done much to instil in his team. The players had confidence in each other. Personal glory took second place to the success of the team.
Their confidence in themselves has certainly improved, and that's grown to confidence in their teammates. They're prepared to give the ball out to a teammate who calls for it because they know that teammates are now far more skilled and confident that they can play the game. And the way that the players run onto the field, the way that they show excitement and enthusiasm when a teammate does well on the field, that it's all visual, and I certainly believe that's a team lifter.
It was against North Melbourne on June the 18th at the Junction Oval where the new team spirit was seen to its most devastating effect. North had just taken over the top position on the ladder from Fitzroy after the Lions were defeated by Hawthorn. Few at the ground could have expected to see Fitzroy play so well. The Lions' 150-point victory represented the greatest loss ever suffered by a team at the top of the ladder. No team could have played as well as Fitzroy. More than any other player, Quinlan represented the new confidence and spirit of Fitzroy. He had met the challenge of his new position with devastating results. As the VFL's leading goal kicker at the end of the season, he became the first Fitzroy player since Jack Moriarty in 1924 to win the honour. He also became the first Fitzroy player to ever kick 100 goals in a season. Superboot booted himself into Fitzroy and VFL records on August the 20th when he kicked his 100th goal for the season. Quinlan accepted a pass from Bradley Gotch when he was about 70 metres out from goal. he kicked true in classic super boot style. As thousands of fans streamed onto the ground to congratulate him, teammates gathered around to congratulate and protect him. It was a moment which long will be remembered by those present. Quinlan was to kick a further 16 goals in a stunning season. The Lions finished the home and away games in third position on the ladder with 15 wins and 7 losses. They went into the finals confident of success. However, a mixture of inexperience and injury was to cost the team dearly during its 2 finals appearances. Laurie Serafini, the unofficial captain of the backline, was injured in the last of the home and away games and was not available for the qualifying final against Hawthorn at the MCG. He was not to play again in 1983. His loss destabilised Fitzroy's defence and also meant fewer chances for Fitzroy's forwards from his long clearing kicks and dashes out of defence. Because of a lapse in concentration in the last 10 minutes of the second term, Hawthorn was able to kick away to a 27-point lead. It was not until midway through the last quarter that Fitzroy again challenged the Hawks' leadership. And it was through Bernie Quinlan that Fitzroy came close to snatching the game. At the 22-minute mark, Quinlan kicked his 5th goal for the quarter and his 8th for the match, and Fitzroy hit the front by 4 points. Quinlan's brilliant final term was described by one commentator as one of the greatest quarters of the modern era. Indeed it was. However, the Hawks soon replied with a goal from a free kick and kicked 2 more behinds, which saw them run out winners by just 4 points. It was Fitzroy's narrowest loss for the season and its most costly. Against Essendon in the first semi-final the following week, Fitzroy was in a winning position in the third term with a 19-point lead, but the desperate and vigorous Bombers pegged the Lions' lead back to just 7 points by three-quarter time. The Essendon challenge proved irresistible in the last quarter, and the Bombers ran out winners by 23 points. It was Fitzroy's first defeat at the hands of Essendon for the season. Although all at the club were bitterly disappointed after the loss, all knew that the team could only benefit from the experience. At Fitzroy, there were no longer any losers. The finals defeats would only make the team's desire for victory in 1984 more intense.
Well, the best thing was that half the side have now tasted finals football, and they'll certainly be a lot better off for that experience. And also, they would have learnt the hard way that 1 minute everybody wants to talk to you about the football, everyone's building you up for the game. You play in front of 100,000 people. If you lose, no one wants to know you. And it's cutthroat football, VFL finals football, and I'm sure that the experience of losing last year and suffering the embarrassment and the disappointment will certainly make us a better team.
Although Fitzroy's 100th season had not resulted in a premiership, it was a season of guts and determination that Fitzroy's founders would have been proud of. It all started for Fitzroy at this hotel, the Brunswick Hotel in Brunswick Street, Fitzroy, on September the 26th, 1883, when a public meeting was held with the aim of forming a senior football team to represent the suburb. The hotel still stands, but now trades as the Old Colonial Inn. The meeting was called by a Mr. George Toms, who, with many locals, agreed it was time Fitzroy had its own football team, so it could compete with other suburbs for the Victorian Football Association Premiership. Many of the leading players of the local Normanby Junior Football Club joined the Maroon and Blue Pioneers. Setting up a new club wasn't easy. Indeed, Fitzroy's second secretary, Charles Cock, and one of its early players lamented, "Even our own residents ridiculed the idea of Fitzroy competing with senior teams. Such encouragement as, 'How many weeks will you last?' and 'Where will Fitzroy be at the end of the season?' was offered." On the day of the team's first game, the Fitzroy City Brass Band marched down Brunswick Street from the Rob Roy to the ground, where it played selections during the afternoon. The game on April 26th against the junior Richmond Union team ended in a draw. But it was not long before Fitzroy's first team, led by Paddy P.G. McShane, was to capture the imagination of the suburb and earn the respect of the football world. On May 31st, the Maroons defeated one of the colony's oldest clubs, Melbourne, and the following week defeated the powerful Carlton team. Fitzroy was established. Mid-season, Fitzroy recruited a brilliant player from the South Ballarat club. His name, John Worrell. Worrell was to replace McShane as captain late in the following season. The stocky rover was to lay the foundations for Fitzroy's first flag. Worrell, who was also a gifted cricketer, was later to coach Carlton to 3 consecutive premierships and Essendon to 2 flags. When Worrell stood down in 1892, he handed over the captaincy to the brilliant Tom Banks, who was to lead Fitzroy to its first and only VFA premiership in 1895. By the time the league was formed at the end of 1896, Fitzroy was a power in Victorian football. The Maroons were out to take the flag in 1898 and again in 1899. Fitzroy's teams in those years became the first to win back-to-back VFL premierships. In 1900, Fitzroy's captain Alex Sloane was confident of victory as he and Melbourne skipper Dick Wardill tossed before the game. Melbourne not only won the toss, but also the game. The early years of the century were years of remarkable success for the Maroons. The club boasted champions such as rover Percy Trotter, who joined Fitzroy in 1901 and was to play 109 games. Later, Trotter's ability was to be compared with that of Hayden Bunton. Here's a rare photograph of the 2 champions together at the Football Carnival in Perth in 1937. One commentator said of Trotter, "When you saw Percy Trotter as a rover, the embodiment of graceful movement, you by no means saw all of Trotter. He was like half a dozen players. I've never seen a more brilliantly versatile player in the game." Fitzroy also had the talented Herbert Boxer Milne. The champion follower played 122 games between 1902 and 1910. He's seen here against Geelong in one of his first games. In 1903, Fitzroy defeated Collingwood in the first VFL game for premiership points played in Sydney. It was also the first game in which players wore numbers. Fitzroy won the game, but in the grand final later in the year, Collingwood returned the compliment. But the Maroons were to make amends in 1904 when they defeated Carlton in the grand final. In 1905, Fitzroy again won the flag, this time against traditional rivals Collingwood. The following year, Fitzroy was back in the grand final, but was defeated by Carlton. Fitzroy would not feature in the finals for another 7 years. It wasn't until 1913 that Fitzroy was again able to taste premiership success. The 1913 premiership win was due largely to a dynamic combination of guys with the unlikely names of Percy Peratt and Jimmy Freak. Freak would remain close to goal, and according to witnesses, Peratt would stab past the ball to Freak with deadly accuracy. The 2 champions were to dominate Fitzroy's attack for the next decade. Fitzroy supporters nicknamed the 1913 team the Unbeatables. Finishing the season on top of the ladder, Fitzroy defeated St Kilda in the grand final by 13 points. Although Fitzroy made the finals again in 1914 and 1915, it was not until 1916 that it again won the flag. 1916 is the only year a team has won the premiership after also winning the wooden spoon. The First World War had driven all but Fitzroy, Collingwood, Carlton and Richmond out of the competition. Fitzroy played poorly in the 12-week-long home and away season and managed only 2 wins. But as there were only 4 teams, they still had a place in the 4. The team stormed through the finals to beat Carlton in the grand final. In 1922, the club was to field possibly its best side of the era. The team boasted the likes of Percy Peratt and Jimmy Freak, Len Wigraft, Goldie Collins and Stan Milan. The grand final against Collingwood attracted 50,000 people. At the end of the tightly fought match, Fitzroy emerged victors by just 11 points. The win gave Fitzroy 7 premierships and put it 2 flags clear of Collingwood and Carlton. Fitzroy was again in the grand final in 1923, but was defeated by Essendon. The Maroons were not in the finals for another 19 years. By the end of the 1920s, the club was to look to recruits to help lift it up the ladder. At the start of the Great Depression in 1930, Fitzroy outbid most VFL clubs for the signature of the brilliant Albury player Hayden Bunton. However, Bunton was stopped by the league from playing in 1930 after he was found guilty of offering his services to the highest bidder. But in 1931, when the champion finally made his VFL debut, his brilliance stunned the football world and won the Brownlow Medal. Although Fitzroy's performance did little to inspire supporters, the team did have stars such as Bunton, Wilfred Chicken Smallhorn, Jack Moriarty and Jack Sexton. Moriarty kicked 81 goals in 1931, but the team only won 3 games and finished 10th. But the presence of these stars ensured that Fitzroy supporters got their share of thrills. Chicken Smallhorn worked closely with Bunton throughout his career at Fitzroy.
Oh, I think he was a magnificent player. He was exciting, certainly. He had great long loping runs, and he could hook a ball in from here, there and everywhere. He could run all day, and he was something I don't think that we had seen before. He was one of the instigators for a start of handball, a beautiful handball player, beautifully balanced player.
Bunton again won the Brownlow Medal in 1932 and 1935, making him the first player to win the trophy 3 times. Teammate Dan Murray, the father of Kevin Murray, recalls Bunton's brilliance.
He was a magnificent player. He had perfect balance. He had a stride, a very long stride he covered a lot of ground, and he had the ability to get the ball.
Even by today's standards, Bunton had impressive match statistics. In 1935, he averaged 35 possessions and in one game gathered 45 kicks.
I think I teamed very well with him. I think he relied upon me as same as a lot of other people relied, not particularly on me, but if I got the ball, it was my duty to get it down to somebody else, and he'd be the logical one to get it because he seemed to be able to read your mind, and he wouldn't lead until you knew you were ready, and you knew darn well that when you did kick it that he would get it anyway, and that gave a wingman a little bit of a rest, because if you kick it to some players and they don't get it and it comes back, well, you're breathless. He was great. There was no two ways, and he used... One thing he did do is he used his arms very, very well, always on the blind side of the umpire. And in that way, he would hold the other fella back and at the same time propel himself forward.
Hayden Bunton left Fitzroy after the 1937 season to be captain coach of the Perth club Subiaco. He played 117 games and during a brief visit during 1942, played a further 2 games for the club. The 30s produced 2 other Fitzroy Brownlow medalists. Chicken Smallhorn in 1933 and Dennis Dinny Ryan in 1936. Smallhorn was born and bred in Fitzroy. The brilliant winger was to play 149 games in an often stormy career. Dan Murray played on the back line the year Smallhorn won the Brownlow.
He was a very brilliant footballer for his inches, and he could turn either way, and he was a particularly good high mark for his inches. I've seen him mark over the ruck players.
For Smallhorn, just playing for Fitzroy was the realisation of a childhood dream.
I think it was the thrill of my life. I don't think that I can be very emotional about this. I don't think that I've ever felt so well physically, mentally and every other way than playing with Fitzroy. I'd do it again if I had the chance tomorrow. The opportunity of being so fit and playing for someone you loved. There was loyalty and plenty of it.
Smallhorn is modest about his Brownlow win and about his part in Fitzroy's history.
I didn't think it was a great thrill at all, to tell you the truth. I think I've related it before that I was at the Merry dance and it was shown on the screen at the Merry Picture Theatre. And they came in and they lifted me up onto the dais and told me I'd won it. And it was something that was completely out of the blue as far as I was concerned, because I never considered the Brownlow Medal. I considered Fitzroy rather than... Brownlow Medal winners, perhaps if you play well, you can be individual, but I like to think I was a team man. And it was lovely. It was a lovely thrill, I suppose, if you look at it that way, but I don't think it meant all that much to me then as it does now. I'm history now. It's history.
Fitzroy's other Brownlow medalist, Dennis "Dinny" Ryan, came to Fitzroy from Albury in 1935. In 1936, he notched up 46 goals. The following season, Fitzroy placed Ryan at centre-half back. The change of position was a brilliant success. He won the Brownlow at the end of the season.
But Dinny's marking was the best, I think, perhaps you could ever wish to see. He used to rise high, hold the ball very surely in the air. He and Len Smith were two players, the only two players I've seen that could fly high in the air, grab the ball in the air above the pack, put it behind their heads and come down with it.
Unfortunately, Ryan's career, like that of many footballers, was cut short by the Second World War.
In 1939, he was one of the first to go away and to list in the AIF when the war started, and he served the full 6 years away. He was in Tobruk and he come back with a couple of wounds. He tried to play a game, but his knee was against him and he gave it away. But I'm sure you that the 6 years that Dinny Ryan played, he was a brilliant footballer.
1937 was to signal the start of a new era for the Maroons. A reform group won the club's elections and made sweeping changes. The club launched a team-building campaign which saw players such as Fred Hewson, Len Smith, Clen Denning, Keith Stackpole and Claude Curtin join the club.
I think we started off with was battling to get a team together, but we tried junior players the first year in 37. But 38 I went and got about 10 players from other clubs. I got 5 from Carlton and 3 from Collingwood and 1 from Richmond and so on, and to put a bit of stability in the team. They were older players, and from then on we built up towards the premiership, which we eventually won in 1944. Should have won it in 1943.
The club's steady improvement from the end of 1942 was due in large measure to Fred Hewson. He was appointed captain and coach, and in his first season, 1943, the Maroons made the 4 for the very first time since 1924.
I remember going down to his house in Northcote and seeing him. Fred, we want you to be captain coach of Fitzroy next year. What about it? And he said, well, why me? I said, well, we picked on you because we feel you would be the man. It's all right, I'll give it a go. So he was duly appointed. And from when he took over in 1943, well, Fred immediately with success. We went to the finals, got beaten in the preliminary final, finished with 15 men, and we could have won that flag. And in 44, we won the premiership.
Dan Murray says the players were aware of the special problems their new coach faced as a result of the war.
And Fred had a very hard job because he didn't have the same players all the time, because a lot of us were in the services and we could only get leave now and again to play football, but he still moulded them into a good side.
Fitzroy won the 1943 first semi-final against Carlton, but was defeated by Richmond in the preliminary final. However, in 1944, Fitzroy's Diamond Jubilee year, the club made the big time. Finishing the home and away games in second position and only 0.1% behind Richmond in top spot, Fitzroy was confident of final success. The Maroons defeated Richmond in the first semi-final. The grand final was played at the Junction Oval. It was the club's first grand final since 1923 and was played in temperatures of around 30 degrees Celsius. Jack Dyer's Richmond was clear favourites to win. However, Fred Hewson was equally as confident of his team's ability. In fact, before the game, Hewson took what some would regard as an unnecessary risk.
Won the toss and kicked against the wind. Preconceived plan, felt that the players going out as they were feeling would be able to hold Richmond. It was quite a windy day, and we felt if we went out keyed up and fresh, that we had more chance of holding them than they would have holding us. So I chose to kick against the wind.
Rover and future Brownlow medalist Alan the Baron Ruthven recalls that Hewson led his team by word and deed.
Hewson, our coach, was a very likeable chap, and the team spirit, I think it's always been hard for Troy, even I noticed in later years, but when I was there, the spirit was probably one of the best in the league.
Well, I would say you could not have got a better team spirit than we had. Every player in that, on the list really, were dedicated to Fitzroy and the team.
Fitzroy's 15-point win over Richmond brought the club the premiership and was a magnificent culmination of years of team building and hard work by Fitzroy administration.
Well, you can imagine what a thrill it was. After a drought of 22 years, we won the last flag in 22, and the supporters have been hanging on and hanging on. And finally, when the flag came in 44, well, I mean, the whole world was let loose. It was a thrill to the players because they'd put their effort in for those 2 or 3 years under Fred Hewson. They were an older type of player. We had to remember it was wartime and the young players were away, and they were a gutsy mob. They had full of courage, and they said they wanted that flag, and they gave their hearts and souls to get that flag. And having won it, and they were playing a pretty good teams in the finals, including Richmond, who thought they had the flag won. But well, when you won, it was sheer determination and courage, really, plus the ability, of course, to do it. Well, you can imagine the thrill we had. I can remember we played it down at St Kilda on a hot day, about 31 degrees, I think it was, and we come back here after the match to the ground to celebrate, and we had, in fact, I think the whole of the Fitzroy supporters here on that occasion. But we were very, very happy on the occasion. Norm Banks was a great, secretly Fitzroy follower. You couldn't say that in the days he was the ace commentator for 3KZ, but Norm was here, and only speaking to Norm recently, he says, will I ever forget that night down at Fitzroy?
Despite the premiership, it wouldn't be until 1947, the year I was born, that Fitzroy appeared again in the finals. Fitzroy beat Richmond in the first semi-final, but met Essendon in the preliminary final, only to lose it in the last quarter by 13 points. Fred Hewson still maintains Fitzroy should have won the preliminary final and gone on to take the 1947 flag.
Yes, well, I felt that 1947 we could really have won another premiership without making too much a point of it. The umpire of the day came to my home some days afterwards to apologise to me for certain things, and I asked him why he'd been so tough on us in the first half, and he said, well, one of your players upset me at the start, and when I spoke to him, he gave me a bit of cheek, and he said, I think I was probably a little unfair to you.
Fred was an inspiring leader. I think he's been the most inspiring man in the club. Not only was he a brilliant player, but he had those qualities of he was an enthusiast, and he said, well, the type of coaching and leadership Fred said, well, come out and follow me and let us show him. And that was the way that Fred Hewson performed.
Norm Smith, the Melbourne great, crossed to Fitzroy in 1949 as captain and coach. The team improved under Smith's coaching, but did not make the four. In 1949, Fitzroy finished 7th, and in his last 2 years, 5th.
Norman was a great coach. He had us for about 3 years, and we were down in the doldrums. We didn't get in the four in the time that he was with us, but we did manage to climb the ladder quite well. And the 3 years, there's no doubt in my mind that if he'd have stayed with us, that he probably would have nearly won us a premiership.
Bill Stephen was a young player, upon which Norm Smith had a profound effect.
I thought the world of Norm Smith. He was a great man and I believe a great football brain, had a colossal ability to get across the point of coaching, a great ability, a great vision of what was required in a player to make him a better player, a great vision to develop his team and so on, and I always had a tremendous amount of admiration for Norm Smith. But as I say, he was in his infancy and as a coach in those days, and didn't even get us into the four, which is strange, to coach us for 3 years and not get us into the four, but I'm sure that his work helped us. There are a lot of players that had their introduction under Norm Smith that went on to become very good players.
Although not all players agreed with Smith's coaching style, all respected his ability.
Norman and I, we weren't the best of friends. Norm was a very, very hard coach. He believed that everybody should train the same. I was a bit of a lazy track galloper, a very lazy one, and certainly I paid penance for it because I'd be first out and last in, that's for sure.
In 1950, Ruthven became the 4th Fitzroy player to win the Brownlow medal. Polling 21 votes, he was 3 votes clear of his nearest rival.
Well, that thrill is unsurpassable, really. I thought I had some chance, but not a big chance in it, and then you wait and hopeful that you do, your name does come out of the hat type of thing. And sure enough, when I did win it, well, it was the best thrill I've had in all my time in football.
Smith returned to Melbourne in 1952, and Fitzroy appointed its brilliant rover, Alan Rutherford, as captain and coach. Under Rutherford's leadership, Fitzroy fought its way back into the finals in 1952, finishing the home and away games in third position.
I thought we were a little unlucky. We showed bad judgment. We picked a couple of players who were injured in the day we played Collingwood. We beat Carlton the first semi. And then we found out that through playing these injured players that we got beaten. Collingwood beat us, but I do think that if they'd have been fit, we could have gone on and won the final that year, the grand final.
Fitzroy's form worsened in 1954, with the club finishing 11th on the ladder. At the end of the season, Ruthven retired as a player, and Fitzroy appointed Bill Stephen as captain and coach for 1955.
Fitzroy, as they normally were in a fair bit of trouble when I took over as coach from Alan Ruthven. It was a playing coach appointment, and I really hadn't sought it, but it was one that was thrust on me because I was one of the few players who were about. I think from memory that I was only about 25 or 26 when I took the appointment, and it was certainly no big money about in the job in those days, but Fitzroy were fairly down at the time, and Alan had given it away, and I was asked if I would coach the team as well as captain it, and I took it over.
Stephen says he had first found it difficult to adjust to his new role as playing coach.
It was very hard, actually, and I was playing coach from the back pocket for 3 years, which was very, very hard, and I can remember particularly in the first half of the year, I don't think I had a kick until I drove myself into forgetting about the team and being able to try and play well, but it was a pretty hard job.
1955 also saw a 16-year-old Kevin Murray make his debut in the seniors.
I was very fortunate to get the opportunity being so young. I'd had struggled in the Fitzroy thirds the previous year and played a few games, and then finally got the opportunity to play in the reserves one day, and things just clicked. And from then on, everything went ahead in leaps and bounds, but it wasn't as though that it wasn't through sheer hard work, because I do recall once I got the opportunity and played in the reserves and had a little bit of success on that day, that I did definitely become more dedicated towards training harder and trying to improve my football, and I was fortunate that the late Len Smith was able to be my coach at the time in the thirds. That he showed us a lot about football and how to go about things, and I had a very good coach in Bill Stephen, who was coaching the seniors. No player forgets his first game. I recall that we were playing Footscray at Footscray, and the great Charlie Sutton was getting towards the end of his career, and he was captain and coach of Footscray, and I was playing half-back flank, and Charlie came off the ball, and I was minding Charlie for a while, and the first thing that he'd done when he came up alongside me was jump on my foot, just to let me know who he was about. But it was a hard blooding, but at the same time it was an enjoyable thing as a young teenager could expect from an old experienced campaigner.
Despite Bill Stephen's efforts, Fitzroy was unable to break into the fore, and on his retirement in 1957, Fitzroy chose its successful under-19s coach Len Smith to replace him.
We had a fantastic year in 1960. We finished equal top with Melbourne, and we were quite confident that we could roll Melbourne in the second semi because we'd had a good result against them in previous years. But Melbourne were a very physically strong side, a talented side, and quite a tall side in various positions. They gave us a decent hiding in that second semi, and we went on to play Collingwood in the preliminary final. That particular game was played under pretty heavy conditions, and by half-time, two of their very good players in Bill Sarong and Brian Dorman were off the ground, and things were looking good for Fitzroy. But unfortunately, Collingwood had far greater desire in the end to hold on to the game. They had a player by the name of Keith Burns, who was a fantastic wet weather player, and he played an excellent game, and we finished up getting beaten by 5 points. Alan Gale, our skipper, he led us well and played his heart out, but we just couldn't back him up right to the final siren.
And he gets his kick in the middle of the pack, but it's Murray now coming up the ground. Oh, he's tackled, but he plays on strongly, and he's kicked out the gabble. It's once again behind the play. Now he handballs rather desperately, but Powell coming in nicely for Fitzroy, but he is tackled. He's caught really, but the play goes on. A handball out wide to, oh, I think it was Stripping underneath there. No, Burns it was. But now it's McMaster Smith broken away. His kick goes up to the centre-half forward position where it's Spilt Vernon. All handballs out desperately in the direction of it was Reeves who cut in nicely for Collingwood and transferred play back down onto Collingwood's half-forward flank. Murray has it again. He handballs. Oh, it's back now to Lynch. Over towards Campbell. All Fitzroy's defenders battling desperately at this stage to hold Collingwood out, and they're doing quite a good job. There's a throw up again as Fellows and Harvey, but Chapman has it. He handballs over to where Harvey gives it a big punch. It's Lynch, tried to tap it over to Waston. It'll go to Waston, but he just failed to get the run on it as Delante. Left foot, oh, it's a bit of overhead there as it goes to Beers. Beers' tackle, oh, he said play on.
Fitzroy would not figure in the finals again for another 19 years. Norm Smith retired as coach at the end of 1962. And Fitzroy's captain Owen Abrahams also retired. And the Lions' young vice-captain Kevin Murray was appointed captain and coach for 1963. The 4 seasons between 63 and 1966 were the worst in the club's history, with the Lions winning only 6 games. Bill Stephen returned as coach in 1965 and coached the Lions until the end of 1970. During this period in the football wilderness, Fitzroy enjoyed few triumphs. However, Kevin Murray's 1969 Brownlow medal win did much to restore lost pride. Murray had returned to Fitzroy in 1967 and won the 1969 Brownlow with 19 votes.
Fantastic thrill. I always recall the night, and I don't think any Brownlow medalist would forget his night. And the thing was, more than anything, a lot of people helped me get there. The players, Russell Crowe and Norm Brown, were our ruckmen in those days, and I was playing ruck rover quite a lot of the time, and I do owe a lot of my success to them. A lot of people helped me. I played with the crook back for a lot of times and for many years. And George Saunders, the late George Saunders, a chap named Arthur Harris, my own trainer Tommy Johnson, and my father, who treated a lot of my injuries, certainly helped me get there in the end. And it was a wonderful thrill and something that I'll never ever forget.
At the start of the 1970 season, Fitzroy supporters again had cause to celebrate when their team defeated 1969 Premiers Richmond in the first VFL Sunday game, which was also played before Her Royal Highness, the Queen.
That particular match was a great occasion and a great match, and at that time we had the players all fired very well, and we had a good side that it went extremely well, and I thought that we would go on that year, but injuries to Doug Searle, who our full forward, and Peter Wood, our full back, left us a bit short, and we didn't go on with it. But it was a great occasion, a great game.
We are the boys from home, Fitzroy, we wear the colours, maroon and blue. We will always fight for victory, and we'll always see it through. Win or lose, we do or die. In defeat, we'll always try. Fitzroy, Fitzroy, the club we hold so dear. Premiers will be this year.
In 1974, the great Kevin Murray retired. Murray recently recalled the great players he played alongside.
Well, as a young player, I always remember Bill Stephen. He had taken on being captain of coach of Fitzroy as a young man, but he was an outstanding footballer, played for Victoria, captained Victoria, and he was a great teacher. One fellow I always admired was Norm Johnston, who was our tough man in those particular years and years before I ever started, but he was an inspiration to all the young players, and we looked up to him. And he, for a fellow with his bulk and his frame, he had outstanding skills, and I always sort of tried to learn a lot from Norm because he had a great knowledge of the game. We had a player called Owen Abrahams, who used to play on the half-forward flank, centre half-forward, or in the centre in the latter part of his career, and he was an outstanding footballer, was a champion. He certainly was one of the greatest players that I've ever played with at Fitzroy. Butch Gale, you've all heard about Butch. Well, Butch was one of the toughest ruckmen that played the game. He was a short ruckman, but he was always a bit of a con man, Butch, but he was able to get about his game and often beat much taller opponents, and certainly showed us younger fellas the way. Russell Crowe was an outstanding ruckman in the late 50s and early 60s. He was a massive sort of size of a man, but a gentle giant. If he had have been a real vicious player, he would have put a lot of other players from other sides out of business. But he was a great player, a man with enormous physical strength and tremendous marking ability at times. But he was one of the good players that I played with. Norm Brown, I always remember Norm when he started. He was a skinny centre half forward, and he developed over the years to be one of our greatest players, and he had to work on it, and it was great to see him get the success that he got in the end. Johnny Murphy, another fella that come in as a young boy at 17 years of age, he was an immediate success, had played open age football in the Diamond Valley League and been a success there, and stepped into our side, and certainly from the first game he played, everyone admired the way he went about playing his game, and as the years went by, he finished up being captain of Fitzroy and certainly set a fine example on how to play Australian rules football. But the greatest player that I ever played with at Fitzroy was Gary Wilson. He, right from the time he first started with the seniors, he was an outstanding team player, had tremendous skills, and often he would hang on for the ball a little bit too long, mainly to not waste a kick. He'd hold the ball till he could finally see a lead and deliver the ball down the ground, with the result that often he did get knocked around quite a lot. But he's still a great player today and an outstanding team man.
In 1976, Fitzroy started a recruiting drive, which was to lay the foundations for its present success. In 1978, Fitzroy again moved to recruit stars to lift it up the ladder. The team improved immediately with these players and humbled North Melbourne in the 1978 night grand final. North kicked 2 goals in the first 3.5 minutes, and they were the only goals they kicked for the rest of the match. Fitzroy ran out winners by 76 points.
Quinlan at centre half back. Scores dead level, 2 goals for 16 apiece. And we've played 13.5 minutes. Back it goes there, and we see Quinlan clear as he gets the ball over the half forward on a chance now for McMahon to mark, and he does. He's out there about 55 metres out from goal. The ball drops a bit short. Wilson's got his hands and couldn't hold the mark. Irwin spins out of the pack beautifully. Another hand pass coming over now to Thompson. A running shot for goal. It doesn't make the distance.
McMahon comes in. He's got the ball in front of him now. Here's a chance for Fitzroy. He almost stopped one there. The hand pass is effective. A shot for goal by McMahon. Handled by that, and he's put it through. He'll drive the Lions into attack once more. Wilson's kick. Beecroft. He has angle as well as distance. Lining them up very deliberately as Bob Beecroft shoots for goal. It's going pretty close. It's not a bad kick, I tell you what. As the match favourites North Melbourne try and battle it out. Can they save the match? Gary Wilson gets pushed over and gets 15 metres for that. Gary Carlton, that wasn't very smart. Oh! Whoops.
Out by Alexander again, and Quinlan gets a go. And there's Irwin driving it well down towards the goal. A chance, can he mark it? Beecroft, he's got it! What a beautiful mark! As the ball comes over to Quinlan again. He steps around Sutton, gets a hand pass back, but he goes after himself. He goes for a long kick. Up it goes towards the full forward zone. Coming out is Robert Walls. Down he goes. In goes McCarthy. He's clear. Has the goal coming up. Yes, sir! Hit the post.
In 1979, with Bill Stephen as coach, Fitzroy defeated Richmond by a record high score of 238 points. The Lions at last made the finals.
In 1979, we did get up to the finals with some, tremendous performances. I think we broke something like 6 or 7 or even perhaps more records that year, and we had an absolutely colossal year, and it was really great to see the excitement. I can remember coming into always in my memory will be coming into the rooms and seeing the streamers around the rooms, and the rooms absolutely packed with supporters on training nights, and that was when we'd made it. We'd made the finals, and it was one of the most exciting times that I can ever remember in football, and I was tickled pink, of course, to be associated with it.
Fitzroy defeated Essendon by 81 points in the elimination final, but lost to Collingwood by 22 points in the first semi.
Well, in the late 70s, players such as Bernie Quinlan, Max Richardson, Kevin Higgins, Len Thompson and myself, we had a lot of experience, and I think we were of value for a year or two, excepting Bernie, of course, who's still playing very good football. But I think our experience helped the club, and it was a big thing for Fitzroy to play in finals in '79. I could liken it somewhat to being in a premiership side, the excitement around the place at that time. So the foundation was laid then, and the club continued to recruit, this time looking at younger players, and the younger players who've now been here for 2, 3, 4 seasons, they're certainly starting to show how good they are.
1980 was a traumatic year for the Lions. Appalling form saw the team win the wooden spoon for the first time since 1966. Mid-season, Bill Stephen announced that he would not continue as coach in 1981. The club announced that it was effectively bankrupt, and the administration pressed for Fitzroy to move to Sydney. Opposition by supporters ended prospects of a move to Sydney, and near the end of the year, a new administration took over, led by former player Keith Weirgard. Robbie Walls was appointed coach for 1981, and from the start of the season, the team's performance improved. The club was once again united and working towards a common goal. We've already spoken of our centenary year success. In 1984, the Lions started poorly, but they stormed their way into the finals, winning their last 6 games, only to be beaten by Collingwood in the elimination final. And of course, Bernie Quinlan again kicked the ton, finishing with 105 goals. Adding to Fitzroy's new success was Bernie Quinlan's Brownlow medal win. This year, Bernie was again in top form, kicking 84 and ending second on the goal-kicking list. Bernie also reached the exceptional milestone of 350 games on the last game of the season, and I can't see him hanging up his well-worn super boots too soon. I believe Bernie typifies Fitzroy's fighting spirit. In recent years, our proud and historic club has tasted some success, and will again very soon. I'm sure the guts and determination the Roys have shown over the past 102 years will ensure the Lions' roar will be heard again far and wide in the coming years. The legacy of our past champions and the ability of our present and developing champions will make sure of that.